Kingston, Jamaica, a city of rhythm, color, and contradictions. Amid the chaotic energy of traffic-clogged roads and the melodic pulse of dancehall, love had quietly blossomed between two of the city's rising stars, Ricardo James and Shanice Thompson. Ricardo, 32, was not your average Jamaican man. He came from modest beginnings in Spanish Town but had carved his way into success through sheer hustle and street smarts. At just 24, he started selling imported car parts from a tiny garage. Within a few years, his brand RJ Auto Imports became synonymous with luxury wheels and high-performance vehicles. By the time he met Shanice, he was already driving a matte black Range Rover and negotiating land deals in Upper St. Andrew. Shanice, on the other hand, was Kingston's golden girl. With long chestnut curls, a captivating smile, and a natural camera presence, she quickly rose to fame on social media. As a lifestyle influencer, she curated a world of fashion, beauty tips, travel vlogs, and #relationship goals content. Brands lined up to work with her, and she had over 200,000 followers on Instagram. But despite her online stardom, those close to her said Shanice remained humble, witty, and family-oriented. Their worlds collided at a charity gala hosted by a local hotel chain. Ricardo had sponsored the event. Shanice was the guest influencer covering it. He introduced himself with his signature mix of confidence and charm. She later joked that it wasn't his Rolex or sports car that won her over. It was the way he asked about her mother's health after overhearing her on a call. From that night, their relationship took off like wildfire. To outsiders, they were the perfect match, driven, attractive, successful. Their love story became a staple on social media. Surprise vacations to Montego Bay, Sunday brunches at Terra Nova, matching tattoos, and coordinated designer outfits. Ricardo doted on Shanice with expensive gifts. A Gucci tote one week, a diamond necklace the next. Shanice, in turn, praised Ricardo as her protector, partner, and king. But those closest to the couple occasionally noticed storm clouds gathering behind the sunshine facade. Ricardo could be intensely possessive. If a man commented on Shanice's photo, he'd demand it be deleted. He hated her doing photo shoots with male photographers and often accused her of being too available online. Shanice's closest friends recalled more than one girl's night ruined by an argument over a DM she forgot to mention. Still, Shanice remained committed. Every man has flaws, she once told her best friend, Camellia. Ricardo loves me like no one else ever has. And love is supposed to be a little crazy, right? When Ricardo proposed during a helicopter ride over Ocho Rios with a 1.5-carat diamond ring, Shanice said yes through tears. The engagement video, shared online, garnered over 300,000 views in 2 days. Their wedding, held on the sun-drenched shores of Negril, was a media event. Celebrity DJs, a 3-tier cake flown in from Miami, a guest list of influencers and politicians, and a first dance choreographed by a famous Jamaican dancer. It was the kind of ceremony that graced magazine covers. Behind the scenes, however, tensions simmered. Ricardo didn't want Shanice to return to brand partnerships involving travel or modeling. She insisted she needed to maintain her independence and identity. Fights became more frequent, though mostly private. Shanice rarely spoke openly about their issues, but on one occasion, she told her cousin in a voice note, "Sometimes I wonder if I made the right decision marrying him. It's like walking on eggshells." Still, the honeymoon was booked. A 2-week escape to the Seychelles, an exotic island nation they'd both dreamed about. It was a place far from the noise of Kingston, far from expectations, and, hopefully, far from the cracks forming in their new marriage. Before boarding the flight at Norman Manley International Airport, Shanice posted a photo of the two at the VIP lounge. Her caption read, "Off to paradise with my forever red heart, #honeymoon vibes, #island love." She had no idea it would be her final post. The moment Ricardo and Shanice stepped off the plane at Seychelles International Airport, it felt like a page out of a travel magazine. The warm breeze carried the scent of salt water and frangipani flowers. Palm trees swayed gently against a backdrop of turquoise water and lush granite hills. It was paradise, and for a while it felt like exactly what they needed. They were greeted by a chauffeur holding a placard that read, Mr. and Mrs. James. He handed them chilled towels and fresh coconut water before driving them in a black Mercedes to their private villa on Maher Island, nestled in the exclusive Aunts Intendants region. The villa, perched on a cliff overlooking the Indian Ocean, was nothing short of breathtaking. It featured a private infinity pool, glass walls that opened to the sea, a personal chef, and 24-hour butler service. For the first 2 days, everything looked perfect. Shanice was back in her element, posting tropical-themed reels, posing in bright swimsuits, capturing aerial drone shots of their villa. Her followers flooded the comment sections with heart emojis and congratulations. Ricardo appeared content, sipping cocktails, enjoying spa treatments, and exploring the local beaches. The staff at the resort described them as friendly, affectionate, and generous tippers. But in the privacy of their villa, cracks were beginning to show again. On the third morning, Ricardo noticed that Shanice had received a direct message from a male fashion photographer in Kingston. It was innocent. He had complimented her recent shoot and asked when she'd be available for another campaign. Ricardo flew into a rage. You're married now. You think I brought you across the world to keep chatting with these damn men? He snapped. It's just work, Ricardo. I've always done this. You knew that before you married me, Shanice replied, her voice shaky but firm. That was the first time the staff heard raised voices from Villa Number 7. They dismissed it as a lover's spat, common among newlyweds adjusting to married life. But when Shanice came down for breakfast with sunglasses on in the shaded veranda, the butler, Lewis, noticed something odd. Her left cheek looked slightly swollen. When he offered her a chilled face towel, she declined with a polite smile. I'm just tired. Long night, she said. The staff didn't press further. After all, many guests came to Seychelles for privacy. Some came to rekindle, some to escape, and some brought more baggage than just their designer luggage. On the fourth day, things seemed better, at least on the surface. The couple booked a private boat tour of the Saint and Marine Park, where they snorkeled, swam with sea turtles, and toasted with champagne on a white sand beach. Shanice uploaded a series of sun-drenched photos with the caption, Healing in Waves Blue Heart #Island Therapy, #Honeymoon Bliss. But by that night, the tension had returned. Over dinner on the villa's terrace, a trivial disagreement turned into another argument. Ricardo accused Shanice of being too flirtatious with the boat captain. Shanice, fed up, finally snapped. You're ruining this trip. Every single day it's something. I can't live like this, she said, her voice trembling. Witnesses in neighboring villas later reported hearing furniture being moved or thrown, and what they described as muffled shouting and a woman crying. The resort manager, Frederick, considered checking on the couple but hesitated. We're trained to give guests space unless they request help, he later said in a statement. It's a fine line between hospitality and intrusion, especially with high-profile clients. The next morning, Shanice stayed in bed while Ricardo had breakfast alone by the pool. He was unusually quiet, scrolling through his phone for hours. When the butler offered him coffee, he declined. Instead, he asked for rum at 10 a.m. Throughout the day, Shanice barely left the villa. She didn't post on Instagram. She didn't take her usual sunset walk. Something had shifted, and the air felt heavier around them. Resort staff noted the cold silence between them, the kind that spoke louder than words. That night, they made a dinner reservation at Lucille Blue, a fine dining restaurant built into the cliffs. It was candlelit, romantic, and secluded. Everything a honeymoon dinner should be. But the couple barely touched their food. No laughter, no affection, just stiff smiles for the waitstaff. The server, a local named Matisse, would later describe it as the quietest dinner I've ever seen from two people in love. At around 11:30 p.m., they returned to their villa. By midnight, the illusion of paradise would shatter forever. Back inside Villa Lumiere, the moonlight spilled through the panoramic windows, casting silver streaks across the marble floor. The ocean outside was calm, but inside the villa, the storm was just beginning to break. Shanice retreated to the master bedroom almost immediately after they returned from dinner. Her makeup was still perfect. Her white silk dress hugged her body like a second skin. But her eyes told a different story. Red-rimmed, exhausted, and strained. She didn't speak as she passed Ricardo, who stood in the open-plan living area sipping from a glass of rum. He watched her in silence, his knuckles white as he gripped the glass. Ricardo hadn't eaten much at dinner, and the alcohol was starting to do more of the talking than he was. Thoughts spun in his head. Shanice's long list of admirers, her independence, the messages on her phone, the looks she got from strangers. In Jamaica, he had control. Here, in this dreamland, he felt like she was slipping away from him. He walked to the bedroom after her, and the door slammed behind him. It was supposed to be their honeymoon, a celebration of forever, but the atmosphere had turned into something colder than the Seychelles Sea. The argument began in whispers but quickly rose to sharp words that bounced off the villa's stone walls. "You embarrassed me tonight," Ricardo hissed. "You do that all on your own," Shanice shot back. Ricardo accused her of making him look weak, of entertaining other men, of caring more about social media than her own husband. Shanice, done with the accusations, told him she was leaving. "I've had enough. I already booked my flight," she said with a trembling voice. That set him off. "You what?" he growled. "I said I'm done, Ricardo. I'll be gone by morning. You can stay here with your anger and your insecurities." There was a long silence. Then something snapped. According to the police reconstruction later, the villa's smart security system recorded a brief power fluctuation at 1:12 a.m., followed by the master bedroom lights shutting off. The concierge, Lewis, recalled that the couple had not called for turn-down service that evening, a break from their usual routine. Neighbors in the adjacent villa heard what sounded like furniture falling, followed by something heavy striking the wall. But in a place like this, where wildlife and waves often make strange sounds, no one called it in. By 3 a.m., the resort's night manager noticed something unusual. Ricardo appeared alone on the villa's front-facing balcony, smoking, staring out to sea in nothing but a bathrobe. When the manager passed by during his nightly rounds, Ricardo didn't respond to his greeting. By sunrise, Villa Lumiere was quiet. Too quiet. When the housekeeping staff arrived later that morning to prepare breakfast, they found the villa locked. No one answered the bell. The curtains were still drawn, and the poolside breakfast table, usually prepared for two, remained unused. By noon, the staff grew concerned. Protocol required them to wait until a full 24 hours of non-contact passed before intruding, but something felt off. At 3:27 p.m., Ricardo walked into the reception area barefoot, bloodshot eyes hidden behind dark sunglasses, and asked for a private taxi to the airport. "What about Mrs. James?" the receptionist asked. Ricardo paused. "She's sleeping," he said flatly. But within an hour, housekeeping entered the villa under management's instruction. The smell was the first sign, metallic, sharp, unnatural. Then came the silence inside, and the overturned side table in the living room. They found Shanice's body in the ensuite bathroom, half submerged in the marble tub, a silk robe wrapped around her, and a crimson stain that spread like ink in the water. It was just after 4 p.m. when the scream pierced through the quiet corridors of the exclusive cliffside resort. The housekeeper, Adira, a Seychelles woman in her early 40s, had seen all kinds of messes. Celebrity tantrums, drunken collapses, even infidelity dramas, but nothing prepared her for what she found that day in Villa Lumiere. First, it seemed like another luxury mess. A spilled bottle of perfume lay broken near the vanity. A velvet chair was knocked over in the living area. The air felt too still. No breeze from the open sliding doors. No sound of the usual island jazz music the couple often played. It was a rich silence, heavy and oppressive. Then she opened the bathroom door. The scene was gruesome. Shanice's body floated in the sunken marble tub, her once elegant silk robe soaked and clinging to her like a shroud. The water, now a murky rose red, overflowed slightly onto the pristine floor. Her neck bore visible bruising, and her lip was split. One arm hung limply over the edge of the tub, her engagement ring, still gleaming, slipping slightly from her swollen finger. Adira stumbled backward, dropped her cleaning tray, and ran screaming down the hall. Within minutes, resort security had locked down the villa. The concierge immediately called the Seychelles police force, and officers from the Mahé Central Police Station were dispatched. Forensic technicians, medical personnel, and an official interpreter were sent to the scene. By the time Detective Jean-Luc Fontaine, a seasoned homicide investigator known for his calm but thorough manner, arrived on scene, resort guests were being quietly asked to stay in their rooms. Management didn't want a scandal. Not here, not in paradise. Fontaine entered the villa, surveyed the chaos, and made quick mental notes. Signs of struggle in the bedroom. A broken bedside lamp, scratched floor tiles. The dining area, untouched, with a full bottle of unopened champagne still in the ice bucket. Shanice's body, no signs of drowning. This wasn't an accident. He turned to his assistant and said quietly in French, "Elle n'est pas noyée. Quelqu'un l'a tuée." She didn't drown. Someone killed her. The timeline began to take shape. Security footage showed Ricardo leaving the villa late in the afternoon, alone, looking disoriented. A call from resort reception confirmed he requested a ride to the airport, citing a family emergency. He had planned to board a flight to Nairobi, from where he would connect to London, and then to Jamaica. Detective Fontaine gave a direct order to airport authorities. Detain Ricardo James. Do not let him board. By 5:15 p.m., Ricardo was stopped at the departure gate by Seychelles airport police. He offered no resistance. When informed that his wife had been found dead, he didn't cry. He simply nodded, looked down, and muttered, "I knew this was going to happen." His strange reaction sent chills down the officers' spines. Back at the resort, forensic investigators collected evidence. Ricardo's clothes were missing from the closet, his toothbrush gone, and his phone wiped clean of all messages. But Shanice's phone, found under the bed, was intact. It revealed a trail of messages and photos that painted a dark picture. Her growing fear, pleas to friends back home, and even unsent drafts in her notes app about wanting to leave the marriage. One note, timestamped at 1:11 a.m., read, "If anything happens to me, please tell Camelia I tried to get out." That note would later become a crucial piece of evidence. Shanice's autopsy revealed multiple blunt force injuries to the head, a fractured hyoid bone indicating strangulation, and water in the lungs, suggesting she may have been submerged post-mortem. The cause of death was officially ruled as homicide by manual strangulation. As word of the tragedy spread, the island's postcard perfect beauty seemed to curdle into something sinister. Guests at the resort were stunned. Some had interacted with the couple at breakfast, others had taken selfies with Shanice, unaware they were posing with a woman just days away from her violent end. The Jamaican embassy was notified. Shanice's family, blindsided by the news, was flown into Mahé under police escort. Her mother, Yvonne, collapsed in grief upon arriving at the morgue. Meanwhile, Ricardo was held in custody at a police facility near Victoria, the capital. During his first interrogation, he refused a lawyer. "I didn't mean to kill her," he said, but it was already too late for explanations. Ricardo James sat alone in a stark, white-walled room at the Victoria Police Headquarters. The air conditioning hummed faintly above him, a low mechanical sound that contrasted sharply with the chaos spinning in his mind. He wore the same clothes he had been arrested in, an open button-down shirt stained with sweat and a faint trace of something darker at the cuff, and beige linen pants, wrinkled and slightly torn near the knee. He hadn't asked for a lawyer. He hadn't asked for water. He hadn't asked for anything. At 8:35 p.m., Detective Jean-Luc Fontaine stepped into the room, accompanied by Sergeant Leon Corvassier, who would serve as a translator if needed. Ricardo nodded faintly. He looked exhausted, but not broken. Yet, Fontaine began calmly. His tone was neutral, non-threatening. "Mr. James, you are not under duress. You are being recorded. You may stop this interview at any time." Ricardo nodded again. "I understand." Fontaine folded his hands on the table. "Tell me about last night." For a moment, Ricardo said nothing. He stared at the plain metal tabletop like it held the answers he needed. Then he inhaled deeply, exhaled slowly, and began. She said she was leaving me, he muttered. She said she already had her flight booked, said the marriage was a mistake, that she couldn't love a man like me. Fontaine leaned forward slightly. And what did you do when she said that? Ricardo's eyes glazed over. I laughed. I told her she was being dramatic, that we could fix this. But she wasn't having it. She packed her suitcase, threw some things in it. Makeup, her passport, her phone charger. She wasn't bluffing. What happened next? Ricardo hesitated. Then he whispered, "We fought." Fontaine nodded slowly. Did you hurt her? Silence. I didn't mean to, Ricardo said almost inaudibly. I just lost it. The room went still. The tape recorder on the table ticked quietly as the seconds passed. Tell me exactly what happened, Ricardo, Fontaine said firmly. Ricardo clenched his fists. His eyes brimmed with tears. Not the kind that come from guilt, but the kind that arrive when someone knows they've passed a point of no return. She called me controlling, said I made her feel trapped. She said her mother warned her, that she should have listened. I just snapped. I grabbed her wrist. She pushed me. I slapped her. He paused. She hit the nightstand. I thought, I didn't mean to hit her that hard. But she started screaming, calling me names. I saw red. I grabbed her again, tried to make her stop. I held her neck. Detective Fontaine was silent, letting the confession unfold without pressure. She kept fighting, kicking, scratching. Then, she stopped. I let go. She wasn't moving. A deep breath. I panicked. I thought maybe she was just unconscious. I put her in the tub. I splashed water on her. But her eyes, they were open. She wasn't blinking. Fontaine asked quietly, "Why did you try to leave?" Ricardo looked up, finally meeting his eyes. Because I didn't know what else to do. I didn't want to go to prison. I just wanted to disappear. Fontaine leaned back, his expression unreadable. They had the confession. And the forensics, the bruises, the broken capillaries in Shanice's eyes. All of it would back up what Ricardo had just admitted. But the detective wasn't finished. Why not call the police? Fontaine asked. Ricardo swallowed. Because if I called, it would be real. And I didn't want it to be real. Outside the room, Shanice's mother, Yvonne, sat with her sister and family liaison officers. She hadn't slept in nearly 30 hours. When the lead investigator stepped out to give the family the update that Ricardo had confessed, she broke down in quiet, wrenching sobs. He took my baby, she whispered. He took her from us. Back in the interview room, Fontaine ended the session. You're under arrest for the murder of Shanice Lorraine James, he said. Ricardo nodded. For the first time, he seemed to register the full weight of what he had done. As he was escorted to a holding cell, handcuffs cold on his wrists, the island's sun dipped low over the Indian Ocean, casting long shadows over paradise. A paradise now permanently stained by betrayal, violence, and loss. The trial of Ricardo James began under the blistering Seychelles sun on a late Thursday morning. News of the honeymoon murder had already swept across the island like wildfire, and the once pristine image of the Jamaican couple that had checked into Villa Lumiere now hung over the entire community like a dark cloud. Locals gathered near the gates of the Victoria Supreme Court, whispering, praying, and peering from behind tinted sunglasses as Ricardo James was brought in under tight police escort. He wore a clean white dress shirt and dark slacks, but the man who once stood tall and confident now seemed smaller. His face gaunt, shoulders sunken. His wrists were shackled. His eyes avoided every camera. Inside the courtroom, the atmosphere was tense. Media outlets from both Seychelles and Jamaica packed the gallery, their pens and lenses ready. Shanice's family sat in the front row, dressed in black. Her mother, Yvonne, held a small, framed photo of her daughter, Shanice, radiant in her wedding dress, tight to her chest. She hadn't spoken publicly since arriving in Seychelles, but her silent grief filled the courtroom. Leading the prosecution was senior Crown Counsel Amélie Duval, known for her precise and firm courtroom presence. As the trial opened, she addressed the jury. This isn't just a case of a marriage gone wrong. This is about abuse, manipulation, and cold-blooded murder. Duvall laid out the case. A romantic getaway turned toxic. Hotel staff had overheard shouting. Forensics revealed bruises on Shanice's neck, defensive wounds, and a shattered vase. A note on her phone read, "If anything happens to me." The defense, led by Marlon Bailey, portrayed Ricardo James as a man under immense emotional strain, not a murderer. "He didn't plan this," Bailey argued. "He lost control. There was no intent, no weapon, no history of violence." But the witnesses told another story. Adira, the housekeeper, broke down describing the scene she discovered. Louis, the concierge, recalled Ricardo's eerie calm the next morning. Shanice's best friend, Camelia, read WhatsApp messages. "He's getting worse. I don't know if I can take it anymore." Then Shanice's mother took the stand. Her voice cracked as she recalled their last video call. She looked tired. I asked if she was okay. She said, "Mommy, I'll tell you everything when I come home." Yvonne paused. But she never came home. The prosecution played resort security footage. Muffled shouting, cries, then silence. Timestamp: 1:16 a.m. When Ricardo testified, his voice was flat. He admitted to grabbing Shanice. "I just wanted her to stop screaming," he said. "I thought I could fix us." Duvall pounced. "You thought strangling her would fix your marriage?" Ricardo had no reply. After 10 tense days, the jury deliberated for 7 hours. On the charge of first-degree murder, the foreman said, "We find the defendant guilty." Yvonne whispered, "Thank you, God." Ricardo slumped in his seat. He was held without bail until sentencing. On the final day, the courtroom sat silent. Ricardo stood in a gray prison uniform, hollow and pale. No tears left. No more pleas. Justice Emmanuel Thibault delivered the sentence. "You chose violence over love. You extinguished the life of a woman who trusted you," the judge said. "This court sentences you to life in prison, with no parole for 28 years. Ricardo didn't flinch. As guards led him past Yvonne, she whispered, "I hope you remember her face every night you close your eyes." Outside, a crowd gathered. The case had gripped 2 nations. Headlines spread fast. Jamaican honeymoon ends in murder. Life sentence for groom. From vows to violence. Tragedy in paradise. Back in Kingston, Shanice's funeral drew hundreds. Her white coffin, adorned with pink roses, was carried by her brothers down the aisle of the church where she had just gotten married. Camelia gave the eulogy. She dreamed of a love story. She wanted to see the world. But she didn't deserve to become a headline.